Just as a monk sharpens his focus to perceive movement before it begins, India has taken a leap into a realm of warfare that only a few have dared to enter. In the silence of laboratories and under the stillness of classified skies, a weapon was born. Not merely of steel and fire, but of vision and patience. The hypersonic glide vehicle is not a missile in the traditional sense. It glides, maneuvers, and strikes like the silent breath of a well-trained martial artist, unseen until the moment of impact. The weapon does not simply travel, it transforms the meaning of movement itself. While traditional ballistic missiles are locked into fixed trajectories, like a train on a rail, the hypersonic vehicle flows like water through a mountain pass, unpredictable and unhindered. It is a weapon of fluid intelligence, reacting and responding with a flexibility that mimics the ancient principle of Wu Wei, effortless action that moves in harmony with the universe. In a world obsessed with control and domination, India has chosen mastery instead. Mastery is different from control. To control is to dominate the external. To master is to harmonize the internal with the external. I empathize with this. The hypersonic glide vehicle is not a threat to the world, it is a mirror to the world's intentions. If one approaches it with fear, it reflects fear. If one approaches it with respect, it remains dormant. This is not unlike a monk in deep meditation, still, calm, yet fully aware. His potential is not in constant motion, but in readiness. Readiness is not panic, it is presence. And presence is what gives India's hypersonic program its true power. Most nations rush their developments. They chase supremacy as if it were a finish line, a prize to be seized through haste. But India has embraced a different path, a path of observation, contemplation, and strategic unveiling. The glide vehicle, capable of flying at speeds exceeding Mach 5, is not just about speed. Speed without direction is chaos. But speed with purpose becomes precision. In martial arts, speed is not about how fast the hand moves, but how calm the mind remains. The quieter the mind, the faster the reaction. India's HGV is an extension of this discipline, a technological embodiment of a still mind and a fast response. This weapon's power does not only lie in its technical specifications, but in its design philosophy. It is a weapon designed not for attack, but for deterrence. Just as a Shaolin monk trains tirelessly not to strike but to provoke, but to prevent provocation, the glide vehicle, when launched, evades interception through unpredictable maneuvering. It is like the martial artist who, instead of blocking the punch, moves just enough to let the punch pass into emptiness. The enemy tires, the weapon survives. And in survival, there is strength. In evasion, there is intelligence. This is the path of strategic harmony. Superpowers around the world are now realizing that their defense systems, designed for predictable threats, are vulnerable to unpredictable minds. India, often underestimated, has demonstrated that power is not a matter of size or noise, but of insight and intention. The hypersonic glide vehicle is a manifestation of an inner philosophy, that the best way to protect is to evolve beyond what others expect. While nations pour wealth into raw weaponry, India invests in understanding the nature of conflict. And from that understanding emerges a weapon not of destruction, but of deterrence, rooted in discipline. When this vehicle is launched, it does not follow the expected arc. It flows across layers of the atmosphere, constantly adjusting, constantly watching. It is aware of its surroundings. It listens, it observes, it adapts. This is not machinery, it is mindfulness in motion. In the Shaolin tradition, even a single step taken with awareness is more powerful than 1,000 steps taken blindly. India's glide vehicle is one such step, measured, deliberate, and perfectly timed. Let us also consider its deeper symbolism. In the modern world, where borders are defended not only by walls but by technology, the ability to strike from beyond the horizon carries with it a heavy moral weight. The hypersonic glide vehicle is a responsibility as much as it is a capability. Like a monk entrusted with the ancient secrets of martial power, the one who possesses it must first master himself. Technology without inner stillness leads to arrogance. Technology with inner stillness leads to wisdom. India, by walking this path carefully, has shown it seeks not to dominate, but to be prepared. Preparedness is a virtue. It is not the sign of a nation that wants war, but of a nation that refuses to be caught unready. In the teachings of discipline, we learn that what appears as stillness is often the result of profound movement beneath the surface. The same is true of India's defense strategies. What the world sees now is not sudden aggression, but the result of decades of silent preparation. The hypersonic glide vehicle is not an isolated achievement. It is the fruit of continuous, disciplined focus. Just as the monk who breaks a stone with his palm has practiced every day for years without applause, India's defense scientists have labored in silence. And now the stone breaks, not out of surprise, but because it was inevitable. And so, what gives the superpowers nightmares is not the weapon itself. It is what the weapon represents, a shift in balance. The realization that another has learned to play the game without speaking. That another has entered the arena not with loud boasts, but with silent steps. This silence is what unsettles, because in silence one hears things others cannot. In silence one sees the flaw in the pattern, and when the time comes, one acts, not out of fear, but out of clarity. The hypersonic glide vehicle is more than a marvel of engineering. It is a philosophy made metal, a lesson taught at Mach speed. It teaches the world that discipline can surpass dominance, that preparation can outlast pride, that vision can fly faster than fear. And above all, it reminds us that the most powerful weapon is not the one that destroys, but the one that prevents destruction by its mere presence. This is the weapon India has created. And this is the nightmare that awakens those who thought the future was theirs alone. To write, there is a discipline in the art of not striking first. There is a strength in not reacting out of fear, but instead acting from awareness. The anti-satellite weapon, or ASAT, is one such expression of restrained yet potent awareness. In 2019, when India conducted Mission Shakti and demonstrated its ability to bring down a satellite in low Earth orbit, it was not an act of dominance. It was a message conveyed in silence, not shouted from rooftops, not announced with great spectacle, but carried out with the precision of a monk performing a single decisive motion after hours of still meditation. It was a reminder to the world that space, the domain once considered ungovernable, is now part of the larger environment of security. And those who ignore this reality do so at their own risk. The ASAT weapon functions in the realm where sound does not travel, where noise holds no meaning, where presence is invisible unless revealed. This is much like the inner world of a disciplined practitioner. Thoughts, like satellites, orbit our mind. Some are necessary, some are distractions. The true test is to know when to let them be and when to bring one down to restore clarity. India's ASAT capability is an extension of this internal mastery. It demonstrates the power to act surgically, not emotionally. It signals that while India has no desire to clutter the heavens with confrontation, it also refuses to be vulnerable in a world that increasingly operates beyond the atmosphere. In many ways, this technological leap is an act of equilibrium. A weapon that reminds us balance is not about weakness, it is about conscious positioning. Just as the martial artist centers his weight before every movement, so too must a nation center its strategy before every deployment. India has studied the rise of new threats. It has watched as space became the next frontier, not only for exploration, but for domination. And rather than react with alarm, it responded with control. Not to threaten others, but to remove the illusion of one-sided advantage. That is the way of discipline: to see clearly, to speak rarely, and to act only when the moment is ripe. The significance of ASAT capability cannot be overstated. Satellites are the eyes and ears of modern warfare. They direct missiles, guide drones, enable communication, and expose the movements of fleets. To have the power to disable them is not simply a military tactic. It is to possess the means of silencing the opponent's vision. And vision in battle is often more important than force. A blind adversary cannot strike with precision. A deaf enemy cannot coordinate his defense. When India demonstrated its ability to blind and deafen a potential aggressor, it rewrote the rules of engagement, not by escalating, but by enlightening. There is also an important philosophical layer beneath this achievement. A monk trains not only to protect his body, but to protect the temple, the sacred space within and without. In this world, our collective space environment is such a temple. It holds the tools for science, for observation, for human progress. To defend this space from misuse, one must be willing to intervene when others forget its sacredness. India's ASAT weapon is not a desecration of that temple. It is the presence of a guardian at its gates, a presence that says, we are aware, we are capable, and we will not allow chaos to ascend unchecked. India did not become a space power overnight. This capability was the fruit of years of silent work, invisible determination, and deliberate refinement. It is easy to build weapons when driven by fear. It is harder to build them when guided by responsibility. India's path has been the latter. It has avoided military alliances that seek only expansion. It has avoided the rhetoric of aggression. Instead, it has built layer upon layer of preparedness until it reached even the start. And now, with a single strike, it has shown that while it walks humbly, it walks with the ability to see beyond the clouds. Fear of India's ASAT weapon is not rooted in what it has done, but in what it implies. It implies that the balance of surveillance and strategic oversight has shifted. It implies that no satellite, regardless of whose flag it serves, is invulnerable. It implies that India can strike quietly, surgically, and purposefully in a realm that once belonged only to the few. This fear is not the product of aggression, it is the consequence of equilibrium. When those who once dominated a domain find that another has entered, not through noise but through wisdom, their comfort vanishes. It is the same way an undisciplined mind fears silence, because in silence it sees the truth. Let us look deeper. In meditation, we learn that not all actions are visible. Some are internal. Some are energetic. A decision to let go of a thought is not dramatic, but it is powerful. A breath taken with full awareness is not loud, but it transforms the moment. The ASAT weapon is such a breath, taken not to disturb, but to realign. It realigns the perception of power. It tells the world you are not alone above. There is another who watches, who calculates, and who can respond if provoked. Some things are far more complicated than we think. If you want to live as if, from the start, you must conceal your emotions and feelings. There is another who watches, who can surely understand, who can recognize, who can recall. You can reconsole. There is another who watches, and in this mutual observation, a strange peace is born, not from friendship, but from balance. India's demonstration also serves as a lesson in karma. Actions have consequences. For years, certain nations use space without accountability. Now, there is accountability. But it comes not with shouting, not with threats, but with proof. Proof that India can act, that it has acted, and that it will act again, only if compelled by necessity. This restraint is often misunderstood, but those who study discipline know that the one who strikes last strikes best, and the one who avoids the strike altogether has already won. The global order is shifting, not by the clashing of armies, but by the silent rise of new capabilities. India has chosen to rise with clarity. It has chosen to remind the world that power without wisdom is a danger, but wisdom with power is a guardian. The ASAT test was not a threat. It was a reflection, a mirror held up to the sky, showing the world that balance has returned. Those who seek to disrupt that balance will find themselves navigating blind, exposed, and vulnerable. In the final truth, it is not the satellite that matters. It is the principle that no realm is beyond the reach of balance, that no height is above responsibility. India's ASAT weapon teaches this principle with the calmness of a monk, the precision of a martial artist, and the resolve of a nation that has waited long enough. It does not demand attention, it commands respect. And in a world that often confuses noise with power, it reminds us that real strength moves silently until it must be seen. Many possess the tools of power, but few understand the discipline required to hold them. This is the difference between having strength and mastering it. Technology, especially in the realm of defense, is not neutral. It reflects the character of its wielder. In the hands of an unstable mind, a weapon is a threat to all. But in the hands of a focused mind, it becomes a guardian. India's advancements in hypersonic glide vehicles and anti-satellite weapons are not isolated achievements. No, they are the expression of a deeper discipline cultivated over decades, shaped by restraint, guided by purpose. In a time when many nations race forward, propelled by fear or ambition, India walks the middle path. Carefully, deliberately, like a monk crossing a river on stepping stones. There is no rush, only awareness, only intention. That intention is what makes the difference between chaos and order. Technology today evolves faster than human maturity. A new missile, a new satellite, a new AI-guided weapon can be created in months, but the wisdom to wield such technology without bringing imbalance to the world takes generations. India has understood this. It has not rushed to display its capabilities. It has not paraded its weapons as symbols of supremacy. Instead, it has integrated them into a broader philosophy of strategic calm, like the monk who trains every day not to fight but to become unshakable. India's research and development teams have worked silently, not to provoke fear, but to ensure readiness. Readiness is not about being first. It is about being prepared when it matters. The hypersonic glide vehicle, with its unpredictable flight paths and immense velocity, is an example of controlled chaos. In the hands of the undisciplined, it could cause global instability. But in India's doctrine, it is not a tool for first strikes, it is a deterrent. Its message is clear: we have the ability to defend not only our borders but our skies. That message, when backed by purpose, becomes powerful without being aggressive. The same is true of the anti-satellite weapon. It could be used to blind an adversary. But India has used it to illuminate the reality that no power is invulnerable in space. This message is not sent with arrogance but with clarity, not to threaten but to establish parity. In many cultures, knowledge without discipline is considered dangerous. The martial arts traditions of the East emphasize that technique alone is not mastery. Mastery comes from control over the self. The one who knows how to strike but chooses not to is stronger than the one who strikes without thinking. India has applied this principle to its technological development. It has built a defense architecture that is not reactive but responsive. It does not seek out conflict, but it does not hide from it either. It is a posture of balance. This balance is reflected in how these advanced systems are deployed, not to intimidate, but to stabilize. In the modern world, perception shapes reality. Nations fear not only weapons, but the intentions behind them. A weapon pointed outward can create distrust. A weapon pointed inward for self-defense can inspire caution. India's weapons are not pointed at the world. They are positioned to ensure that no one believes India can be coerced. Coercion in global politics often begins with superiority in technology. By quietly matching that superiority, India does not join the race to dominate, but it exits the zone of vulnerability. That is wisdom in action. That is power with purpose. This purposeful development is rooted in a cultural understanding of restraint. In the Indian tradition, Shakti, power, is not wild. It is channeled. It is awakened, not unleashed. India's scientists, engineers, and military strategists have followed this path. They have not let pressure, competition, or insecurity guide their hands. Instead, they have let vision and principle lead. It is easy to follow what others do. It is harder to ask, is this the right time? Is this the right path? This questioning is what builds character. It is also what builds a defense posture that is firm yet fluid, capable yet ethical. Look at the global reaction. Superpowers watch India not just with concern, but with a deeper kind of respect. It is the respect given not out of fear, but out of recognition that India's capabilities are backed by thought. Behind every satellite test, there are years of calculations, thousands of decisions, countless revisions. Behind every missile design, there is a philosophy. Never waste movement. Never act in anger. Never escalate without reason. These principles mirror the teachings of self-discipline. Just as a master breathes before he moves, India waits before it acts. And when it does act, it does so with clarity, not confusion. There is a tendency in the world to equate silence with weakness. But in martial philosophy, silence is power. The loudest are often the least prepared, the quietest often carry the deepest knowledge. India's quiet rise in defense technology is not accidental. It is the result of choosing silence over spectacle, focus over frenzy. And that silence now causes unease among those who believed only they could command the skies or space. But this unease is not India's fault. It is the natural consequence of imbalance being corrected. When one walks into a room and sees another standing still with perfect posture, one is reminded of one's own instability. That reminder brings discomfort, but it also brings respect. India has not just built machines, it has built trust within its own institutions. That trust is the invisible strength behind every technological success. Machinery are intentioned to be useful, but it is ever risky if used for corruption. That trust is the invisible strength behind every technological success. A missile can be copied, a satellite can be reverse engineered, but inner alignment cannot be replicated easily. It must be cultivated. And India, through its democratic checks, civil-military coordination, and a strategic doctrine rooted in ethics, has cultivated this alignment. This is why its hypersonic and ASAT developments matter. Not just for what they can do, but for how they came to be. They were not born in haste, they were forged in discipline. Ultimately, the message India sends is not one of dominance, it is one of maturity. It is a reminder that the future of warfare is not in the number of weapons, but in the quality of intention behind them. A nation that knows how to wield power without being consumed by it is rare. India is choosing that path, not perfectly, but consciously. And consciousness in a world driven by reaction is the greatest power of all. Weapons can bring destruction, but wisdom can bring prevention. India's advancements in strategic defense are not signals of aggression, they are reflections of awareness. That awareness of threats, of responsibilities, of consequences is what separates a nation that merely survives from one that leads with integrity. And in that awareness, India is not just building weapons, it is building a future where power and purpose move together, like breath and movement in a martial form, each supporting the other, each strengthening the whole. There is a principle that governs all disciplines, whether in combat, meditation, or national defense, and it is this: strength is not measured by how much you can do, but by how much you can choose not to do. In the hands of the undisciplined, even wisdom becomes a weapon, but in the hands of the mindful, even weapons become instruments of peace. India's trajectory in developing Star Wars class weapons technologies that operate in the upper atmosphere and beyond is not merely a show of strength. It is a meditation on balance, clarity, and preparedness. These systems do not just reflect military capability. They reflect the inner structure of a nation that has chosen to respond to chaos not with fear, but with focus. Let us understand something fundamental. The power to strike spaceborne targets or deliver hypersonic payloads across continents is not ordinary. It is a power that shifts the psychological balance of warfare. It is not simply about intercepting a satellite or outpacing missile defenses. It is about redefining how conflict itself is perceived. And yet, even with this transformative capability in its grasp, India has not altered its voice. It has not raised its tone. It has not used these achievements to dictate terms to the world. That silence, that restraint, is the loudest signal of all. For the world has grown used to noise accompanying power. But when power is silent, it unsettles. When it does not demand attention, it commands it. Unlike other powers that seek validation through demonstration and confrontation, India seeks understanding through demonstration and patience. Its test of the ASAT weapon was not accompanied by political posturing. Its hypersonic trials were not projected as threats. Each achievement was a point of awareness, not a call to action. And therein lies the essence of true deterrence. The one who does not speak threats is often the one who has already calculated all possible threats against him. The one who smiles without fear has already accepted the weight of his strength and learned to carry it without arrogance. This awareness is born not in laboratories, but in culture. In a civilization that has contemplated the stars for millennia, that has studied silence as a form of knowledge, that has seen war and peace as cycles, not opposites. India does not worship war, nor does it fear it. It prepares as the monk prepares his body, not to seek violence, but to ensure that when it comes, he is not caught unaware. The development of weapons that can operate in space or move faster than any existing defense system is not merely technological progress. It is the materialization of a deeper principle, that true peace can only be kept by those who are unwilling to be enslaved by fear. These systems are also reflections of interconnectedness. Just as the human body is not strengthened by the bicep alone, a nation is not secured by one weapon alone. What India has built is a chain of awareness, from surveillance to interception, from missile defense to counter-space dominance. This interconnected grid reflects not brute strength, but intelligent design. Each part supports movement, and stillness supports clarity. This is not just a defense posture. It is a posture of readiness rooted in harmony. The satellites that India can now disable are not abstract targets. They are symbols of eyes that can no longer look down unchallenged. The hypersonic platforms are not just fast. They are beyond prediction. In this unpredictability lies India's message. Do not mistake silence for unawareness. Do not mistake tradition. When we reflect on India's choices, we must also look at what it has refused to do. It has refused to militarize space with permanent bases. It has refused to initiate any space race. It has refused to declare dominance. It has instead opted for capability without conquest. This is the discipline of the path. The one who trains in martial arts does not enter the fight to win by aggression. He enters only when there is no choice. And when he does, he finishes the conflict quickly, decisively, with as little damage as possible. India has built such an ability, not to prolong conflict, but to prevent it, to remove the temptation from others to test its limits. This approach has global implications. As other nations observe India's technological evolution, they are forced to reckon with a new paradigm, one where a power rises not through alliances or threats, but through silent advancement. This makes India unpredictable, but not dangerous, calculated, but not aggressive, wise, but not passive. It teaches others that the new superpower does not need to seek followers. It only needs to walk its own path with enough clarity that others either align with it or step aside. That is the quality of presence that changes the shape of geopolitics, not through control, but through centeredness. India's development of these high-level weapons is not a reaction to others. It is a recognition of the world as it is becoming. Space is no longer just the domain of exploration, it is the new theater of threat. Satellites guide missiles, hypersonic vehicles challenge early warning systems. The next war may not begin on the ground, but above the clouds. Knowing this, India has chosen to be ready, not loud, not brash, but ready. That readiness is not a declaration, it is a condition. It is like the open hand of the monk, inviting peace, capable of striking. There is also a spiritual dimension to this readiness. In Indian philosophy, the act of creation and destruction are part of the same cycle. The same hands that till the soil can wield the sword, but they do so with responsibility, because to harm without reason is to lose balance. And in balance lies the survival not only of the individual, but of the whole. India's space and defense programs reflect this consciousness. They are not built to overwhelm, they are built to neutralize imbalance, to ensure that others do not mistake goodwill for weakness, to restore symmetry where asymmetry has grown unchecked. In the final analysis, these weapons, though forged in steel, coded in logic and launched into the void, are messages. They speak in silence. They say, we are here. We have watched. We have prepared. We will not be the first to disturb the peace, but if the peace is broken, we will not be the ones surprised. This message is not broadcast. It is understood. Like the presence of the master in the room, he does not need to speak to be known. His stillness is enough. His awareness is felt. This is where India now stands, on the edge of technological mastery and philosophical restraint. It has the ability to enter any new domain of conflict, but it also carries the burden of knowing when not to. That burden is heavy, but it is also sacred. For in a world of unchecked escalation, the nation that remembers to breathe before it moves, to pause before it strikes, and to speak only after it has listened, that nation becomes not just a superpower, but a stabilizer. And so India continues upward, outward, inward, not to conquer, not to compete, but to complete what it began long ago, a journey of awakening where every weapon is guided not by hate, but by clarity. And in that clarity, even the stars themselves become allies, not enemies. That is India's true weapon. Not what it holds, but how it holds it. Not what it can do, but what it chooses to do. India stars to, and in this choice, it gives nightmares not through fear, but through a realization that the age of domination is ending and the age of awakened strength has begun.